Welcome to this episode of Women in Rugby League, the Pioneers. And I'm absolutely loving these because I'm getting back in touch with people from the past that I haven't spoken to for so long and actually finding loads of information about people. So I'd really like to welcome to this episode. People will know her as Michelle Bradbury. Bradders, as we've just been saying, who has been involved in rugby league since the 1980s from the age of 17 from Wigan Times and then moving on to Huddersfield and then a whole host of other things she's been involved with in rugby league. And now married name Michelle Anderson. Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you. Hi.
And it was just so lovely. The other week we just caught up, didn't we? And we had a brew and a catch up about everything. And it was just lovely to touch base with you. And actually, when I came away from that thinking, well, do you know, I knew Michelle all that time, but I didn't know such a lot of things. But actually, the long history of your involvement and what you've done in rugby league is just phenomenal and just absolutely brilliant. So it would be remiss of me not to be able to put you sort of part and parcel of the pioneering years. So let's start from the beginning, that age 17 girls. Tell us a bit more about how you got involved sort of in rugby league, what made you want to go and play, and a bit more about that.
Okay. I think I remember going to watch Wigan Rugby probably the late 70s when Green Vigo played. Those who know Wigan players will know who Green Vigo was. It's probably still a bit too young then to really get into the sport. And then my granddad, who used to go every Sunday, asked me to go to Wembley when it was the Wigan Widnes Wembley 1984. Went and I was totally hooked. Even though we lost, I was that was it. He bought me a season ticket for 2 years, and then I got to work with him on the Douglas stand as a stewardess. Spent his money that he earned as well as my own, buying memorabilia, chips, of course, every game. And then I think at that point, I didn't think women or females could play rugby. And I remember, I think it was the nines, and there was a women's team came over. And I remember the one player who stood out was Lisa McIntosh. Just the sheer athleticism, I can't say the word now, but the sheer size and the how she was an athlete and so strong. And the way she played in that game was just as good as the fellas on the pitch. And I think that was sort of the thing that was, if they can play, why can't I? That time there was no team in Wigan at all. I was still at school, so I must have been 15, 16. Went to school with a couple of other girls who were interested in rugby. Could we get a team up, as a sport for after school? Was told no. So it was the case of, oh, okay then. And then I remember seeing an advert in the Wigan Evening Post that they were setting a women's team up in Wigan. So, of course, I went there. I'd already been playing on the field at the side of where I played for a few summers with the lads, as they come at summer, kind of play. Yeah. So, I'd already had a little bit of a go at playing on the field at the side of us. So I went to the first training session, and that at that point was at the back of the Imperial Hotel in Ince. So those who are from Wigan will know the Imperial Hotel. Sadly, it's not there anymore. And just started training. So that was how I got into actually playing. Yeah.
Yeah, that was brilliant. And isn't it interesting that how important, because that British Call Nines, so it was the
Mm-hmm.
Central Park British Call Nines, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Um, the Crossfield ladies will tell you that they rang the RFL or somebody at the Rugby Football League and says, we play nine aside, we want to be part of that event.
Mm-hmm.
And how important that was event, how important it is for young girls
Mm-hmm.
to see women playing and where we are now and we're able to see those women play. But even at that time, having them on that stage so you knew that women could play,
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
important role models are.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And it's lovely to hear because as I'm unpicking this history, that stands out to me as a phenomenal, because for 2 years running they played at that British Call Nines,
Yeah.
did the teams, and
Mm-hmm.
how important it was for young people to see him playing and even at that time it influenced. So that's lovely that
Yeah.
story's come out.
I think it's sad though that Wigan being the rugby town that it was, there was no support, even in the
Mm,
schools or even the clubs, the amateur clubs, and even, Wigan rugby itself, there was no support to get a team together, which is it's massive now how all these clubs are getting involved. I think it's absolutely brilliant. But you just think back in the 80s, they didn't want to know. It was, yeah.
No, and Wigan in particular didn't want to know. It's
No,
really interesting.
yeah.
80s and 90s as we uncover
Mm-hmm,
what's happened in other areas. So I've just been speaking to Karen Burrows around Redhill, and the
mm-hmm,
club embraced them.
right.
Halifax, the club really embraced them, the
Mm-hmm,
Halifax club, and Dudley Hill, the community club embraced. But
mm-hmm.
the interesting with the history of Wigan is no community club really said, right, bob on, we're going to take on this women's and supported you. You had to do everything yourself and you didn't really have a base, did you?
No, we didn't. As I say, we trained on the field at the back of the Imperial Hotel. But when it came to winter, there was no floodlights there. And we actually used to train for a good few sessions in front of St. Patrick's church on the road.
Oh,
You
wow.
know what I mean? So
Yeah.
we couldn't train at the club. It had to be in front of the on the road, in front of the church, because there were street lights. So
Mm.
obviously, not a busy road, thankfully, but it was a biggish area. We're dodging traffic. We're having to stop and start, stop and start. And
Wow, how dangerous was that?
but that was the only place we could
Yeah.
train in the winter. So I mean, really, for those girls, not just myself, but the other girls, I mean, that was dedication as well. And I don't think we realised just how important that was to do that back then.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it is phenomenal because there's a lot of women's teams. I know talking to Hull Vixens, they had to do something similar about
yeah,
under the lights, wherever they could get the light. They
yeah,
actually went to train, and actually a lot of community clubs, to be honest. Let's be honest, lots of boys' teams had to do
yeah,
something similar.
yeah.
So initially was it Wigan Ladies you played for, or was it Crown Springs?
Well, we moved up to Crown Springs after a while.
Mm,
We were classed as Wigan Ladies to begin with. And so we'd gone to all the amateur clubs. And our first game before we moved up to Crown Springs was where the new Wigan Warriors ground is now. At the side, there's the running stadium,
Robin
the
Park.
Robin Park, and that used to be Fields, and that's where we played our first game. So it's quite nice to think we actually
Oh,
played. Yeah.
wow.
So the first game we ever played was there, and we only ever played once. And then we ended up going up to Crown Springs in New Springs and came under their umbrella. And I just remember this cellar. Oh, it was dismal. It was awful, to get changed in. And then it was a good 5-10 minute walk across the estate to get to the field. So yeah. But yeah, I think we were there a good couple of seasons before Wigan Ladies or Crown Springs ended up moving to Warrington because we were short of players. But yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I know there's a bit of a triangle in what I'm uncovering now of players moving from clubs just within Lancashire in particular
Yeah.
to set up the teams, which is really interesting as we're beginning to uncover it. What's your memories sort of those early days then of traveling and other teams and
Oh, I remember us going to York, and I remember us travelling, well, a few games actually, in the back of a tranny van, just sat on like little wooden stools in the back of the tranny van. I don't know who got to go up front because, well, none of us had any cars. I mean, we had one girl, Sonia, who was only 13 years old, playing open age rugby because there was no age limit then
Yeah.
or anything. So, a 13-year-old girl, yeah, playing open age. So, and as I say, I can't remember the ages of the other ones, but they were similar age to me, 18, and we didn't have cars, we didn't have the money, so it was a case of back of the tranny van. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So how many years did you play for Wigan then?
So I played a couple of years. So I'm trying to think, 18, and I moved out of Wigan when I was 21, and that's when I stopped playing. So I moved to Liverpool then.
Mm,
So probably 3 seasons actually. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So what then happened rugby league wise?
I didn't do anything for a bit because I was in Liverpool. I thought I would at one point. I knew there was a team in Crosby playing rugby union, and I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't go to the dark side. So I didn't play rugby, and I was at university, and then we moved here to Huddersfield. Within a couple of months of moving here, I heard there was a team up. They were advertising up at, I'm sure they were at YMCA at that point, and that's how I met Lisa Jagger initially. She was running the team, so I started playing up there at the YMCA. yeah.
Yeah, that was the Huddersfield. Was that the Huddersfield Raiders?
I think they were called Huddersfield Raiders at
Yeah,
that
yeah,
point, and
yeah,
then it changed to Linley later on. Yeah,
yeah. They did, didn't they? And it
yeah.
was a bit of a baptism of fire, wasn't it?
The first game, yes, it was. I remember we were playing Halifax Ladies, and then there was a few altercations happened on the pitch through the game, but I think that was mainly because we had like a 13-year-old boy refereeing us, and
Yeah,
it just isn't ideal, is it? You wouldn't do it with the men's open age men's games, so you
no,
don't do it with an open age women's game, but they
yeah.
did. The poor boy ended up in tears. I can't remember who took over refereeing the rest of the game. The game did finish, and then outside the clubhouse, it was a full-on both teams in a big brawl. I mean, a lot. My husband, who used to play, he said he's never seen anything like it. YMCA Rugby Union Club thought it was great, our next training session, but it wasn't really ideal. But again, I think that came down to that lack of respect for the women's game. If it had been
Yeah,
a fully grown person, it wouldn't have happened. They'd have nipped it in the
no.
bud straight away.
And one of the themes through this is around how difficult it was to get referees
Yeah,
for the women's game. And interestingly, at Hull, so I remember the Hull Vixens time, I was a member of the Hull Society, and I
yeah,
remember standing up in meetings and saying the women need
yeah,
referees.
yeah.
And I remember actually being told that they will get appointed after the last boys' game at under 11s, and then if there's any
Right.
referees left, we'll appoint them. And I
Yeah,
remember having that conversation. Well, that's just not good enough. These are women playing rugby
yeah,
league. We need to appoint a
yeah.
referee to them.
Definitely, because the women's game, it might not be as fast as the men's game at the moment, but it's as tough. And the emotions are flying just the same, and stray arm goes in, that players react. And so
Yeah,
we all know some players react more than others. And every team has that one player, don't they, who will
yeah, yeah, yeah,
react and who will wind up. It's part of the game.
yeah, yeah.
Mm.
It is, and it's an emotional game, isn't it? It's a contact sport that
Yeah,
needs to
yeah,
be given that respect. And interestingly, as well, I think men and women are different to referee.
yeah.
You've got to referee them. Women, I always said that women want to know what the laws of the game are and generally wants to stick to it. Whereas, and this is being really broad brushstroke. Whereas men, first 10 minutes will test you as a referee to see what they can get away with.
Mm-hmm.
And then the game sort of settles from there. So very different to referee.
I think it is, but I also think as well with the women's game, you've also obviously got, women are physically different to men, and time of the month can also have it can,
Yeah, yeah,
it's,
it
I
can.
know people try and hide away from that, but, women are sometimes their emotions are all over the place, the hormones are all over the
Yeah,
place, and that can definitely have an effect on the game. And I
yeah,
don't think male referees and even sometimes coaches understand that the same as females, but
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is, and it is a female athlete. It's very different.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a really good point. So, and I think now sport is beginning to understand
Yeah,
that, isn't it?
yeah.
And I know there was a seminar about coaching a female rugby league athletes the other week,
Mm-hmm.
which I just thought was fantastic and a real progress to
Mm-hmm.
um about the needs and wants right through, women's life
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
menstruation and everything else that happens, which can't be hidden away from, as you say.
No,
Really, really
no.
important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you're playing for Huddersfield Raiders, and then it becomes Linley.
Yes, we moved to Linley, and I think that was around the time when I started coaching for my first time as well. The girls' team, which was it was interesting because it made me think about the game in a different way as well. So yeah, and I think because I've just qualified as a teacher, I think that may be one of the reasons I were asked, so I was used to working with children. But yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So you did your coaching badges, did you?
Did my coaching badge, yes. I remember the first badge that I did would have been at Bradford. Yeah, yeah. And I think there was only me and one other female on the coaching course. The other female didn't want to do the contact stuff. So yeah, that was
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
quite interesting to see as well. Where I was, quite happy because I was playing. So yeah,
Yeah. I imagine Andy Harland was probably involved with that at Bradford.
can't remember. There was, in
Yeah.
fact, I think, oh, who was the gentleman who worked at Greenhead College quite a bit?
Oh, yes. Carl, someone was it?
Yes, I think it was him actually, because I remember when obviously we had to introduce ourselves and I was from Wigan. I remember him going to the door and shouting, "Oh, got pie eater, you can't have her in here," that kind of thing. But yeah, but I think that's something what's really good with rugby, isn't it? The banter between,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So you did your coaching course and then you were coach. So you were playing at Linley for Linley, and what team were you coaching then?
The girls from Linley.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that was when I got involved with girls rugby league committee as well. So I got involved in that at the same time.
Oh, Gala.
Yeah, Gala. I didn't. I was like, yeah, it is pronounced Gala. Yeah, that was quite interesting meetings. That was in Bradford, wasn't it? Was it the no? Can't remember the pub. What it was called upstairs.
Oh, yeah, it is. And they still meet there now
Did they?
sometimes. Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Drop kick or
That
something,
was
was it?
it. Something like that.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. While I still meet there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, at
Yeah.
that point they were separate, weren't they? They were run very separately.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So what leagues and things did the girls play, and what were they playing? Festivals? Were they playing
No, it
league
was it
games?
was small league games. Yes, I'm not saying they were full teams at that point. They could have been. I can't. Memory goes, doesn't it? I think they probably were like small-sided games, nine-a-side. But it was small leagues. I remember one of my girls, our first game playing Rochdale, and we were brand new to the game, and she ran through and she threw the ball down like American football, and we were like, no. But yeah, I can't remember her name, but yeah, that was one of the first experiences of girls rugby in a
Yeah.
game.
And what age group was it?
They'd have been about under 13s.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Because interestingly, it's had a bit of peaks and troughs. The girls' rugby league was really quite beginning to grow in the 1990s,
yeah.
early 1990s, and then it went down a bit. And this would be sort of towards the end of the
This
90s,
is
is it?
towards the end, and I think when I was
Yeah.
coaching the girls at Halifax, which was after this, I think that was a really good time for the girls' league because you didn't have many teams, but you had probably will miss some out. You had Pendle, you
Mm.
had Rochdale. There must have been more over that side. You obviously had Halifax, Bradford girls, Castleford girls. I can't remember if there was any more, but there were really competitive games, and the girls, were all pretty evenly matched and stuff. So I think that was for me was an exciting time for girls rugby.
Mm.
Mm.
And quite a few went to be internationals, didn't they, from that
Yeah,
time?
yeah. So you've got a lot of players, and again, you're going to ask me names. The names that stand out, obviously, from that era was like Lewis Fussell, who's now at Leeds. You had again, I know Lisa Taylor. I don't think Lisa Taylor made it to a GB, did she? I can't remember. But she was one of the big players from our side. You had Andrea Dobson, obviously, from the other side.
Mm.
I think did she play for Pendle? Can't
She
remember.
she came from that sort of area, but she played at Rochdale.
Oh, it might have been Rochdale then,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah,
So, they're the big names from that era. Yeah,
yeah. And it was quite a breeding ground for that, really, wasn't it?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you started coaching, and what are your memories sort of that Linley playing days then? Of again, sort of going, was it very different from what happened at Wigan? Was there a because did the
Um,
club embrace you a bit more? And
I think because, yeah, Linley did sort of, but again, we were kept very separate. There wasn't a lot of, I think, mixing still. I think it was very much girls, your women's section just ran the women's section. And I think the only person who sort of spoke to the Linley side would have been Jackie Cork, who was on the committee. I think she was the secretary
mm,
of the Open Age as well. And then there was a gentleman who was on the committee called Ralph. I can't remember his surname at all. So he was the one who I had dealings with. He used to help me on match days back at the Kit Kat Club. The girls had hot dogs, that kind of thing. But yeah, so they must have supported us more in the background. But as a player, I didn't see that because I wasn't involved in the
mm,
committee side at that point.
mm,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. So you went on a tour, didn't you? With
that was with Halifax.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So there was some at Yorkshire and Northwest, wasn't there, in 2002? Was that right?
Um,
Halifax Blue Sox. You went over to them, didn't you, and played for?
yeah, so I went to Halifax. So me and Michelle Wood sort of left Huddersfield around the same time. She went to Birkenshaw as I went to Halifax. Yeah. And then I think the couple of things, big things with Halifax was one was the going to France, and two was being asked to be extras on Where the Heart Is.
Oh
Yeah.
yes, absolutely. So let's cover the tour first
Yeah.
and about going to France and what you did with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So with France, again, I wasn't involved in the organising of that. That would have been Chris Holsworth. Really sesame with mine, see, a menopausal woman and can't remember
You're
names.
doing brilliant.
So we were asked to go to play for a curtain raiser over in France. So it would have been, I think, the championship game for Toulouse, and I can't remember who the opposition was. And it was at one of the big stadiums in Paris. We were told these girls were new to rugby league. So we travelled over. We were promised a room that we could all sit in, on a bit of a social room. That didn't happen. So I remember on the Friday night as we arrived and we were in the hotel, and we weren't being loud or anything like that. We were all sat in the end of a corridor, just playing a board game, being quiet, whatever. Next minute, armed police came threatening to deport us because apparently we were making a noise, and we weren't. Anyway, so we went to our rooms, but they didn't deport us, thankfully. Next day, we did play the curtain raiser. It was quite, for me, because I'd never been in sort of a big game like that. So it was, a bit nerve-wracking. The players, the teams, the French team actually turned out to be the National Rugby Union team.
Oh
So
wow.
they could play. They could really play. Didn't matter that they hadn't played much of league at all. Let's just say we were beaten by quite a bit. And then after the match, obviously, we watched the Toulouse game, and then we were taken up into hospitality. And us all being, I don't know, Northern girls were not a lot of money, but, we'll have one drink, so we didn't know how much it was going to cost. And then we were told it was a free bar. Well, every player was there with bottles number of bottles in each hand in case the free bar was taken away. So it was really good. It was it was an experience. Yeah.
And you're still in touch with some of those players?
Yes. So Emma Proctor ended up coming and playing for me when I was coaching at Brighouse. And some of the other girls I'm still in touch with, obviously, on Facebook. So that's
Yeah,
nice.
it's a real community, isn't it? When you
Yeah, it is. And I think because the girls travel and move, I think with Facebook, that's a godsend in a way to keep in touch with people. Yeah.
It is, isn't it? It's a really nice way. And you suddenly come across someone, you go, oh, I remember
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
Right. So tell us where the heart is. Tell us all about
Oh,
that.
so we were apparently Where the Heart Is wanted a female team to be in the background of the clubhouse. So we weren't playing or anything. We were just in the clubhouse afterwards. And I remember us being on set, something silly o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning. And the only player who ended up getting any makeup done, and she didn't need any makeup doing, was, I think her name was Vicky Collins, definitely Vicky. And she went and she'd gone for a while and she had all her makeup. And I think they decided not to do any of the rest of us. So none of us got our makeup done. We had quite a bit of banter with the male staff, the male sort of actors. And at that point, I don't know, you'll know Leanne Clegg.
Yeah.
Yes, well, you can imagine the kind of banter that was coming from, Leanne Clegg. She had a good sense of humour, so I remember they were chuckling at some of the comments. That was, yeah. But I'm not going to repeat. I can't repeat it. I can't even remember them now. But I know they were chuckling, and they probably hadn't seen anything like it, probably. So that was good. So we were in the background for one of the episodes.
Yeah, it was interesting because it was filmed Slough way, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And the referee was a local referee as well, wasn't it?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I think we were probably at that point. I don't know if Huddersfield was still going, Huddersfield ladies. We were probably the nearest team.
Yeah, yeah. And actually it was about the episode was about, wasn't it, a women's team coming to play the men's team or something like that,
Yeah,
wasn't it? And the
yeah.
hoo-ha around women playing rugby league.
Well, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So
We all
very
know
topical
that.
of the time. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Film star as well.
Mm.
Wow, that's absolutely. So your coaching really took on, didn't it, in the
Yeah, so
2000s?
yeah, when I was at Halifax, Chris wanted to focus more on the women's team. So I then took on the girls section. And because some girls could play up a year group, you had a couple of year age groups that the girls were playing at. So yeah, so I got involved, and I know Chris was the head coach for Yorkshire Girls one year, and he asked me, and I think his wife, Diane, helped out. And then after that, I ended up coaching the Yorkshire Girls. I think I did about 3, 4 seasons in total.
Oh,
Yeah,
brilliant. What was that
yeah.
like then?
It was good because it was a different level, because I mean, I had coached obviously the Huddersfield girls who started the career, and it was a case of getting beaten. Well done. You've gone 10 minutes this time without having a try scored against you. To actually having an experience with the best of that time. So yeah, it was really good. And I think some of the other things that were invited on, like active sports at Newcastle. I remember going on to that, and active sports at Sheffield, and then getting involved in, the boys' regional camps and stuff, and the coach mixing with very experienced coaches and ex-players, and following the David Waite's plan and things. I were able to start using that in my coaching, so that was, yeah.
It's
Mm-hmm.
brilliant. And it was an era, wasn't it, that we'd just received, as you said, David Waite was in charge of the coaches, and we were just beginning to develop service area rugby and
Yeah,
regional. And the active sports was funding to start at grassroots to grow
yeah,
it, wasn't it?
yeah,
And then we had service area and regional camps like the Northeast, and then
yeah,
you got involved in all of that.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
and Yorkshire, which was
yeah.
brilliant for your coaching experience, wasn't it?
It really was, because I got to meet coaches who I would never come across in the girls' game. If I'd have just been in the girls' game, I would never have had those experiences. But I think, by having the opportunities to branch a little bit into the boys' game through, like Amplethorpe, and doing the service area, boys' service area, etc., it just took my coaching on, and I got to learn off a lot of experienced coaches, which is what it was about. And then to share that with the girls, I thought was really important. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then you ended up doing it as a job.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I applied for Greatest Manchester Sports Partnership. Yes, I think that was about 2003. Yeah. And again, that just opened up other experiences. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because at that time we'd come in, we were beginning to grow as a sport.
Mm-hmm.
And Greater Sport, which was a sports partnership, wasn't it,
Mm-hmm.
was beginning to employ people, and this is where you undersell yourself, and quite often as women we do. You got that job, and you made such a difference to so many people in the
Mm-hmm.
period that you actually worked there, developing. It wasn't just about players, was it, coaching? It was about developing volunteers and coaches. And
Yeah.
tell us a bit more about that role and.
Oh, I remember. So once part of my job was obviously the club mark, which I do think was really important to the time. I think down to my own experiences in the game, to make the game safe, for all children, definitely. Youth involved in the game, and then it was a big part was developing teams in, across the different boroughs within Manchester to enter the youth games. So it was hosting the youth games for the rugby league section of it, trying to get girls teams up and running, trying to get boys teams up and running, having contact with the actual clubs themselves. I found Salford Reds were really, really helpful. And I remember holding a girls' sort of day, for coaching and stuff there. That was really good. And I cannot remember a name, and I will try and find the picture. There was an England player who came along to that, one of the female England players, and I thought that was really important for the new girls to see this is what you can aspire to. So you know that they were really supportive. Lee Rugby Club again was very supportive. I know we held a girls' curtain raiser there, which was good. You know, they let us do that. So yeah, it was good to mix with all these different people, and again, it wasn't just developing the girls' game, but the boys' game as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
And with the work that you were doing then took on to the next generation, didn't it? And you
yeah,
what's lovely is when Michelle we actually met and you says, "Oh, I don't know if you'll be interested in this." And it was like all the publicity and your
yeah,
reports of what you actually did at that time and how phenomenal it was
yeah,
for developing the sport, as I say, not just the girls' game, but the sport as well.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And did you enjoy what did you enjoy about the job?
Um, I think I enjoyed. I didn't enjoy the office bit. That part I didn't. It was actually being out there and doing a bit of coaching or setting up days and inviting children to come along and then seeing the numbers. And I remember I'm trying to think what game it was. I cannot remember what open age game it was, but we had quite a lot of the youth boys, doing a parade before the game at Manchester City's ground.
Fab.
It could have been one of the Tri Nation games, I
Yeah.
think. I know I've still got the cutout from the programme and stuff. I know. I am a hoarder.
We love hoarders in Women in Rugby League. We love it.
But yeah, I think seeing those children, whether they were the boys or the girls, actually enjoying the sport and then just hoping that they do go on and carry
Mm.
on. I know we had a girls' day, and that was quite nice for me because it was back on the fields where I started. The Imperial Hotel had gone by then, but it was on the fields at Ince, and we had, a girls' sort of festival there. And Andy Gregory came along and helped. So, me being
Oh,
my age and my team that I started watching, Andy Gregory was a hero. So that for me, it was Andy Gregory's, yeah. So that was quite good, and I do think one of my best moments is just probably sounds daft, and I am gonna you're gonna have to, I really can't remember his name because I'm really blank with names, but he was really important in rugby. He was the commentator.
Ray French.
Yeah, and he contacted me when I was at Manchester. I said, if you ever need anything, let me know. And you could just hear from that phone call because he hadn't got a clue who I was as such. He was very passionate about rugby. He says, if you come up at any obstacles at all in the Manchester area, you
Oh,
let me
wow.
know and I will sort it for you.
Oh, how
But yeah,
lovely.
but to have, such a legend like him to ring.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And just showed what the work that you did and the impact it was having
yeah.
at the time. How long did you have that job?
I did it for I think it was 2 years, and then the funding was coming to an end, and then I went back into teaching. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. And in those 2 years, you probably impacted so many people's lives that you're not aware of that,
Yeah,
that
mm,
actually made that difference. And it was like the golden era of rugby league, wasn't it?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
So you came back to Huddersfield. What happened after sort of all of that? And were your playing
Oh,
days over?
no. So I know. Yeah, I came back to Huddersfield, and I think because at that time, about 2005, we were going through IVF and stuff. Well, so I couldn't play, kind of thing. So I had a few years out, and when nothing happened, kind of thing, I went back, and it was Carly. I can't remember her surname. Or no, Cara, sorry, from Huddersfield. She'd known about me and phoned me and said, do you fancy coming playing up at Slough? And I was like, well, I'm getting on a bit now. I'm in my, late 30s. Because it's just a bit of fun. So I ended up going back and playing up at Slough for a couple of seasons. And it was really nice because there was some of the girls there who obviously I'd known from before. So there was Michelle Wood, who I'd played with at Huddersfield there. There was Laura Dyson, who I'd coached as a girl, who was the Rachel Hobson, who played in the Huddersfield team. So it was fun.
Yeah, yeah. I've heard loads about the history of this Slough women's team and how much fun it was.
Yes.
Um, And you did a big tour with them.
Oh, another tour, another lie about how good or bad a women's team is. So I think it was Cara who had a relative who worked at RFL, or her relative's friend worked at RFL. Can't remember which. And through a bit of miscommunication, we were told these were a brand new team to rugby league again. However, they thought we were the international team, and we were just a pub team, not a very good pub team, really. And we went over to Russia. We were put up in it was like in not a posh apartment blocks, but apartment blocks. And we found out afterwards we actually had the best floor. The other two teams were upstairs and not great facilities. So we get there. We are invited to what is probably their equivalent to a town hall. The mayor's there, dignitaries are there. We're all in our nice tracksuits, slowy tracksuits, all looking very smart. We were given plates and cups and plates and a book and all this, that, and the other. And I think they thought we were something special. And then we went to play, and there was two teams, Russia and Kazakhstan. And these women were built like, you can imagine, really solid units, all young. I mean, you think, I'm trying to think what year it was, 2009. So I'm coming up to my 40s. Michelle Woods was a year older than me. So we're both late 30s. Michelle Wood's daughter, 16-year-old, was playing. There was a girl, Alison Smith, who I think is even older than me and Michelle Woods. So she, you know what I mean, playing against these 19, 20-year-old physically fit, strong women. And it was on AstroTurf as well.
Oh, wow.
And yes, so again, we didn't do very well. And there's an interview somewhere because Laura Dyson was the captain, and they wanted to interview her before the first game. She didn't want to do it, so I got lumbered with the job. So there is an interview in Russia somewhere, with me on.
Oh, wow, on Russian TV.
On Russian TV, yes.
I wonder if they understood your
my accent.
Your accent.
My Buka Maluk, probably not. Yeah.
What an experience.
It was absolutely brilliant because, I mean, we weren't allowed anywhere on our own. We had to be chaperoned. They took us to Red Square, and that was just absolutely amazing place to be. They took us to a big park as well. And it really was an experience. And I would love to go back to the country because it was beautiful. But yeah, it's a once in a lifetime, But I think the thing is the food, because, there is a lot of poverty, obviously, in Russia. The food for me was okay because I'm vegetarian, so what they gave me was fine. But I think it was like boiled chicken on the bone in stew. Well, a lot of the lasses wouldn't eat it. Cara was okay because I think she had some Russian ancestors, so she was fine. And there was a hut at the end of where we were staying selling chocolate and drinks, and he probably made a fortune out of our lot on that week when we were there. And the big one was we were all buying super hooch tins. It was only 8p a can, but it was 8%. Two cans, and we're having a couple of drinks every night. Russia and Kazakhstan are all training, no drink, no nothing. Didn't even speak to us all through the week. It was only on the last day after the last game that we actually got to speak to them, and yeah, so yeah.
And were they purely a rugby league team then, or were they rugby union?
No, they were rugby league, yeah.
Wow.
Both rugby league teams, yeah, national teams. I mean, they were really good. But yeah.
Who didn't own it? Slow it.
I know. My husband says there should be a play made of it.
Absolutely. I think it'd be hilarious.
I know, yeah. And some of the photos that that we all took, it was good. It's a once in a lifetime experience. Not many female rugby players, don't get a chance to play for GB or anything, won't experience anything like that. And that's we did. So
absolutely. Yeah. And Russia's on my list, and I don't know if I'll ever be going there soon with what's going on.
Yeah.
But missed opportunity. But it's just a phenomenal country that I'd love to visit. So very jealous of that.
Beautiful place, definitely.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So you didn't stop there, did you? You didn't stop. So you'd played for Slough and then you continued your coaching.
Yes, I got back into coach. So I'd been coaching, I think, quite. So when I stopped coaching the girls, I was coaching my son's team. So I think at one point when I was still playing just towards the end of Halifax, I was started coaching my son's team. Coached them for a few years, and that was how I got involved in Kirklees service area. And I did 1 year assistant, and then a couple of years actually head coach. So yeah, that was, yeah. Again, it was a great experience because you're getting the best of the best again, and you can do
Yeah,
so much more very quickly, can't you? Because they
yeah,
get it. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah,
Mm.
you can, can't you? And I think your coaching experiences, and if you look at your pattern and your level of coaching that you got to, it's
Mm-hmm.
pretty phenomenal, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, I suppose it is. I don't see it like that.
Mm.
I see what I'd like to have done, if that makes sense, not
Yeah,
what I've
yeah.
done.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that I really feel sorry, well, not sorry, but regret is I remember getting a letter. I'd been picked to assist Neil Gregg. Is Neil Gregg, isn't it? From,
Mhm.
yeah,
Cumbria.
Cumbria, to assist him on under 21s England to coach them. And then the funding fell through. And it's
Oh,
just one of those, I was that close. So,
wow.
yeah. But yeah.
Because you did some coaching at Brighouse as well, didn't you?
So Brighouse Swimming started, I think, 2013. Yeah. And there weren't
Yeah.
many players there at the time at all. And it was, my first time of actually coaching a women's team. Managed to get to the plate cup at Bradford. So we did play at a final, which was good. And at one point, we built the numbers up so much, we had two teams running.
Wow.
So Dave would, my husband, who's sort of like helped out quite a bit, he would on match days take, we called it the dream team, the second team,
Mm.
and I would take, the first team. So, to have built up all those numbers. And it was lovely because I got quite a few players who had either coached or played alongside to come along. So there was Emma Proctor from Halifax, who I think I mentioned, she came along. Stacey Wilson, who'd been one of the girls at Bradford when I coached Halifax, and I coached her at Yorkshire Girls. I mean, her experience, and she should have gone into coaching. She was just, a calmness. It was, yeah, I think that's something she should consider. And then some other girls who I coached at Halifax, girls who came along, like Cara Calvin and Beth Greenwood, and there were Stacey Hardy, so it was lovely to see familiar faces back. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's it on my list I've got of the phenomenal thing. When we actually met and you were going through everything, you think, wow, what fabulous experiences you've had over a long period of time. Now,
Yeah.
have we missed anything out that you've actually done? I know you've written some notes for us around everything that
Oh,
you've done.
I don't know. I'm trying to think. I don't think so because, as I say, um, obviously involved on the Ampleforth camps, the regional boys camps, a couple of times. That was again another near miss, I think, because I remember um, Mark Burgess was asked me to be Yorkshire coach, assistant Yorkshire coach with him, and I turned it down. And I remember telling Andy Ireland and that I didn't think I were ready. And I should have been. A man wouldn't have done that. I know that sounds
Yeah,
awful, doesn't it? But I think it was because I was female. I
yeah,
didn't feel that was good enough.
yeah.
So,
And you
that,
were all that experience you've
yeah.
had. And
Mm,
it's interesting as women how we think we need to be absolutely great at it to move up to the next stage, don't we?
mm,
We need to have cracked it when actually moving up to the next stage, we need to use it as a progression to get even
yeah.
better.
Yeah. I mean, I know when I was on some of those camps, and obviously, on the first day when everyone's arriving and no one knows who anyone is, there were a couple of times I was asked if I was the first aider, which annoyed me because at that time I had my senior coaching badge and
Mm.
probably, if not as qualified, more qualified than some of the coaches.
Absolutely. And experience wise,
Yeah, yeah.
Michelle, you had phenomenal experience right from early doors,
Yeah,
didn't you? If you
yeah,
think of when you started up and doing things and worked it as a job.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Absolutely phenomenal. I'm just in, what you've done is just absolutely phenomenal. And I know we sort of talked about what next in the sport, and part of this project is uncovering the great stories
Mm,
such as yours of what you've done in the sport and what you've added to rugby league,
mhm.
and a pioneer because you were there at the early doors. So
Yeah,
the
yeah,
league sort of started 85 but didn't really begin to grow until 88,
yeah,
89, and you were sort of part and parcel of that,
yeah,
which is
yeah.
great. And then all your coaching that
Mm.
continued on. What would next be in rugby league for you if you wanted to?
Oh, I don't know. I don't. I really don't know. I don't know whether it. See, at the moment, it's not the right time for me to be coaching. I know Lindley Swifts, because after Brighouse finished, we went moved to Lindley Swifts. I know Lindley Swifts are in the thing at the moment about setting back up, women's team again. And I have had to say I can't be involved, not as a full time coach at the moment. So I have too much other things going on. But I would like to get back involved at some point because it's been such a big part of my life.
Mm,
People I've met, some very good friends, lifelong friends as well. So I'm not saying the door's ever totally shut.
mm.
Um, part of me still would like to put my boots on again for another 10 minutes if at some point. I know
There's
that.
masters.
Well, yeah, but because I broke my second ankle 2 years ago, so I'm still just recovering from that. So I don't know. I don't know. I think whatever happens will happen at the right time, if that makes sense. It will
Yeah, it
just
does.
happen. Yeah,
Yeah, and you're a true pioneer of the sport. I know when we first met up, you went, "Oh, I haven't really done," as a lot of women do when
yeah.
they're first uncovering. And when now you've sort of had time to think about it and go in your loft and find everything, what do you think about your sort of part you've played in rugby league and
Oh,
um,
I don't. Again, I think that's like you say, we put ourselves down. I don't see that I've played a massive part. I just feel I've played a small part, but I think what I've done is probably combined with everybody else's is just so integral, and it's you know, I do feel privileged that I've had a chance to coach, especially some of the girls that I've coached, and for them to see them to go on to what they're doing now, I think is really good, or what they
yeah,
have done. And to still be recognised by some of the girls that I've coached, and some, even some of the boys, I think that's a massive reward that they actually appreciate what you've done.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely. And you
mm,
played a big part in the development for lots and lots of years as a player, as a coach, and as an administrator.
mm.
And thank you for the part you've played. And thank you for agreeing to be interviewed and just telling people your story, which I think is absolutely phenomenal. Thank you.
No, thank you.